With the beginning of the year approaching really fast, a lot of us are getting ready to gather supplies for the upcoming school year. And while I was on the Bridging Literacy community, I came upon a question. And so I want to read this question to you. Hi everyone, I'm ordering student supplies for next year, and I'm trying to figure out what kinds of supplies would be best for facilitating this program. She's talking about Bridging Literacy. Due to COVID, we are being told that next year there will be no community shared supplies and that each student must have their own of everything. I also wanted to be prepared for the chance that distance learning might happen again next year, so I'm trying to figure out what can be done digitally. I know Bridget has talked about almost everything she does is digital, but then also talks about using lots of graphic organizers and using highlighters on photocopies of text and on student work. And I'm wondering how that is connected to the digital work and in what format those handouts are stored. If anyone has any ideas or answers, please let me know. Thanks. Now, I'm going to share with you all my response to this question. And if you have any other ideas, I would love for you to leave them down in the chat, just so that we can share what we are all trying to do to make sure that we're prepared for this upcoming school year, but we're also prepared for possibly going digital. You know, my favorite time during my ELA block is my small groups. It's a time when I'm able to really connect with my students, to provide that instruction, to give that feedback, and to hopefully set them up with the strategies that they're going to need to be successful when they go off to do their independent work. And during these small groups, my students are engaging in conversations about rich mentor texts, but we're also utilizing a lot of school supplies in order to have conversations about sharing our thinking and also responding in a way that is authentic and meaningful to their learning. Some of the materials that we use that are more permanent in fashion, like sticky notes and index cards or sentence strips, allow my students to be able to convey their thoughts, to be able to practice different strategies and skills, but then to also display them in a classroom in a way that allows for them to go back and really reflect on what it was that we were learning in group so that they can continue to apply it independently. And what better way to keep track of their learning than by using chart paper? This is an essential in my small group. It's where we keep track of new vocabulary words and new strategies, but we also use it as a parking lot for the responses that we are formatting when we are responding to our mentor texts. However, not every student response needs to be documented and kept on a wall. And in those cases, we use our dry erase boards and markers. These are for those grammar sentences, those practice sentences, or for vocabulary words where we just need to jot down a thought, but you want every student to have the opportunity to share. And for those occasions where you have your students working with collaborative partners and group, you have to have some form of tracker as they are going through the thinking process. And for this, I use highlighter kits and also page flags. These easy and colorful tools allow students to be able to organize their thinking, but also track the evidences that they locate as they're working with their collaborative partners. Now, as I welcome the new group to their lesson, the group that has just left me is now working independently on practicing those strategies and the skills that we have just finished learning from small group. Each student will begin their independent time by taking out their composition notebook. This allows for them to reflect on any learning that has occurred from small group or to really reflect about the purposes of learning a new skill or strategy in reading. Depending on the day, then they may also take out their folder for writing. And this folder will keep track of any drafts, any brainstorms, or any final copies that are just getting ready to be published. The favorite out of any ELA block is going to be the time when my students can open up an independent reading book and curl up into a cozy spot and begin reading for enjoyment. But we also discuss quite often that it's important that we really think about the strategies and skills from small group and try to integrate them into their independent reading. And to help my students do this, we have a Post-it note folder that has page protectors along with essential I can learning statements that will keep track of my students' thinking while reading. Once I have had the opportunity to meet with every single one of my groups, then the time for conferring begins. As I meet with my students independently, we will use a file folder that contains their assessments, their goals, and also their writing samples to discuss their progress in the curriculum. These are my favorite times because it's the times when I'm able to really connect with my students and to discuss where they are in their learning. As we get closer to the end of class, then my students will begin cleaning up their materials. And any work that has been completed or needs to be completed will go home in their home folder to return the next day. In a world where there are endless options when it comes to school supplies, we need to remember that sticking with the basics can really offer the greatest results, and that through conversation and reflection, our students will thrive. And while there are still so many unknowns with the upcoming year and how learning may continue to evolve online, it is important to remember that there are amazing applications that can temporarily provide an alternative to the physical items we use in class. Tools such as Notability, Pic Collage, and whiteboard applications such as Explain Everything give students the ability to import graphic organizers, highlight, and take notes on various reading materials. While many of these are provided by schools, I would love to hear about some free options or alternatives that you have found to be helpful in and outside of your classroom. We already know that this will not be a normal year, whether it is online learning or ensuring that each student has their own set of school supplies. But we can continue to provide our students with loving and safe environments in which each child thrives and loves to learn.